If you click because the title said my partial hysterectomy story after 1 year, regret, and recovery, you're in the right place. I'm finally sharing the full story, the trauma, my recovery as a vegan, the pain, and the truth about life after losing three reproductive organs. Whew. Okay. This past year has been one of the hardest but most healing chapters of my life. I dealt with fibroids since my 20s, anemia since childhood, and doctors who didn't always make me feel safe. As a black woman who's vegan, and honestly, as someone who's spent years finally listening to my body, I want to walk you through everything I wish I knew, from birth control trauma all the way to walking out of the hospital and healing at home with the help of my family. And the moment I realized that my uterus had grown to the size of a woman who is 18 weeks pregnant, that changed everything. But we'll get into that soon. So, my first gynecologist was my mom's doctor, a white male gynecologist. And listen, he didn't harm me, but being 16, having a strange man touching my vagina during a woman's exam, it just felt really weird. It was like my spirit remembered something. Maybe something from a past life, like something my body remembered, even if my mind didn't. That experience planted a seed of distrust in the medical system really early for me. I probably developed white coat syndrome around that time without realizing it. And that's exactly why later in life, having women doctors, especially women of color, became so important to me. When I went in for my annual women's exam when I was living in Atlanta in my 20s, my OBGYN was an Indian woman. She was kind, gentle, and straightforward. She was the first doctor I actually felt safe with. She diagnosed me with uterine fibroids at 26 and recommended a uterine fibroid embolization surgery, which is a minimally invasive procedure to shrink the fibroid tumors. But at that time, I didn't have my parents in Atlanta with me to help me recover. So I didn't feel comfortable going through with that procedure. So I got a second opinion from an OBGYN who was a black woman, also incredibly warm and caring. She told me something different, that even if I had the uterine fibroids surgically removed, they could grow back. So hearing that made me decide not to do any surgeries at that point. I just wasn't ready physically, emotionally, or logistically. Those experiences shaped how I approached everything that came next. Yeah, I've been anemic since I was like 10, and I've experienced heavy bleeding, quarter sized blood clots, and painful cramps that felt like knives stabbing me in my uterus every month since I was a child. While I was living in Atlanta, after I was diagnosed with uterine fibroids by two different doctors, I decided not to have any surgeries to shrink my fibroids. And I was still struggling on a monthly basis with literally bloody periods while I was on birth control. Actually, it was Nexplanon to be exact. And the birth control helped somewhat, but the pain I think also increased the size of the fibroids and it restricted the blood flow in my limbs, my legs actually. So I turned inward. I tried to heal holistically, researched everything, took breaks from OBGYNs. I went vegan at 29 and eventually found my happy flow, which actually helped regulate my hormones enough to help me have less of a painful period. And it didn't fix the fibroids, but it gave me a chance to heal, to feel normal. I almost forgot to mention I stopped taking birth control a few years after I went vegan. So I found out about my happy flow about 2 years ago, and it was a game changer for me because it helped me have a more pleasant period even though I had three large fibroids growing in my womb. right here. My Happy Flow is a plant based supplement, clinically studied women's health supplement designed to support happier hormones and healthier cycles. Now, it didn't cure my fibroids, but it helped me get rid of the painful cramps, the bloating, and mood swings. Now, this is not a cure for fibroids, but it can definitely help alleviate a lot of the PMS symptoms. So, if you're interested, you can click on the link below to get yours today. Believe me, your body will thank you. At one point, I was bleeding every single day of the month. 4 heavy days and 3 light days of bleeding, and then spotting nonstop with panty liners, plus random stabbing pains in my abdomen. I don't even remember if I told my doctor about the sharp pains from having the fibroids, but I gotten used to enduring the pain. Eventually, my doctor referred me to a women's fibroid center here in Dallas. She recommended that I have a UFE procedure before I have a hysterectomy to shrink my fibroids. It was the first real step of medical intervention I felt aligned with, and UFE is uterine fibroid embolization. So if you're new to this channel, please like and subscribe so you don't miss anything. Now, I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers, and I really appreciate it if you help me. So, thank you so much for your support. Now, after the UFE procedure, they put a fentanyl patch on my arm. Now, I hated how it made me feel. I was high as fuck and felt horrible, and I did not like being on drugs. That alone convinced me that I never wanted to do narcotics again, unless absolutely necessary. But it did shrink my fibroids enough for the hysterectomy. And it helped my OBGYN prepare me for what came next. I chose to have a partial hysterectomy because I had no interest in having children. And I had that realization that I didn't want kids when I was in elementary school because my dream was always to have a career that I love, not a family. I admire women who are mothers. I just didn't want that life for myself. So the day before my hysterectomy, I had to fast and I had to drink some type of insured drink that I think was plant based and wash my body with antibacterial soap the night before. I didn't realize how much you use your pelvis for everything. Coughing, laughing, sitting up, all of that became a challenge. I went into surgery with clarity. My uterus was the size of an 18-week pregnancy. Removing it meant removing the fibroids, the pain, the anemia, and the constant bleeding. Now, I barely slept in the hospital those first 2 nights. The lights were bright, nurses checked on me constantly. And right before leaving the hospital, they removed the staples from my incision. They also used a catheter, and that was the first time I had a catheter inserted into me. And honestly, the removal wasn't painful as much as I feared, but it was just a lot of pressure. So my vegan diet helped me after the recovery. I told the hospital staff and they worked with me. They gave me fruit, apple juice, sauteed veggies, and even an Amy's burrito that I didn't eat because I don't eat that stuff. The nurses were shocked at how fast I recovered, walking the hallways the same day because I wanted to get out of there so I could get home and heal, okay? Now, I want to share a video of me a few days after I had the hysterectomy and me recovering in my bed at home. This video is 5 days in the making. I intended to video myself during the time I was in the hospital, but I felt like shit and I wasn't going to do that, so never did it. I just wanted to focus on recovery. I had a total hysterectomy. So my doctor removed my uterus, fallopian tubes, and my cervix. I shouldn't smile after that, but if you know what I've been through when it comes to just having a cycle every month, and sometimes the cycle lasting longer than a week, maybe a week, and maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, bleeding. I may not feel up the whole pad, but it's to the point where you like, I don't want a period anymore. And that's why I decided to get a total hysterectomy. Um, I don't want to have children, so that's another decision that I made, which helped me realize like a hysterectomy, a hysterectomy was for me. Um, I was diagnosed with fibroids, uterine fibroids at 26. I probably had them earlier than that, but I wasn't aware. Um, when I was living in Atlanta, I found that information out when I went for my well woman's exam from my doctor, and she told me, one of the options was a UFE procedure, and I decided not to do that. And I had a second opinion from another doctor. Both of these doctors were women, women of color. Um, my first doctor that told me that when I was diagnosed with uterine fibroids, she was Indian, and my second doctor was a black woman. Both an Indian woman that was my doctor, and a black woman that was also my doctor. And the black woman told me that you shouldn't get them removed because they're gonna come back. So I just decided not to, and I was already afraid. And I lived out there, lived in Atlanta by myself without my parents. So I wasn't sure how I was gonna take care of myself. And the fact that I lived alone in an apartment and I would have to walk upstairs, just decided, that I was working in Bank of America at the time, so I just decided, I was so afraid that, you know, having them removed would be such a hassle. Didn't want them to have to come from Dallas to Atlanta to take care of me. But I probably should have did something about it at the time because they grew to the size of one of them was the size of a cantaloupe. Then I had two that were the size of grapefruits. And I'm pretty sure I had even more fibroids like inside of my uterus that I'm not aware of. And it was just always giving me problems. Um, I've always had painful periods. I started my cycle when I was 10 years old, and that actually is normal in our family to start that young. My mom had her period at 10 years old, and my periods were so bad to the point where I would have to stay at home from school, and I was the only person at the house. And it was like every month, just heavy bleeding and cramping to the point where you're caught up in a ball in bed in pain, and that was normal for me, which I'm sure it's a normal for a lot of black women specifically. I know for sure it's a hard experience to go through, but when it comes to fertility issues and reproductive issues for black women specifically, um, and me personally, I think it's because of our hair products as well as the food that we put into our bodies. If I only became vegan um, before I left Atlanta, I think maybe some things would have been different for me. I decided to become vegan when I moved back to Dallas, which was a year after I moved back, which was in 2014. So I've been vegan for 10 years. But I know my vegan diet has actually helped me with my with when I had my fibroids. It's because if I wasn't vegan, I know my my cycles would have been a lot worse. Just this year, and I'm gonna say last year is when they started getting a lot better because I've been off birth control
since I want to say 30 or 31. And I started birth control when I was 17, um, because I was sexually active at the time. So, but I also contribute, I believe, that a lot of my issues probably came from the birth control too. So it's just been a long journey, and I'm on the road to recovery at the moment. Um, just trying to heal, and it's allowed me to realize how much I appreciate the little things when it comes to just, um, being able to move certain parts of your body. Getting out the bed is no longer an easy task. And like I can move around, but I have to move around slow. So just making sure that I'm careful about what I do. And I've been told by my mom, I'm a mother who has also had a hysterectomy when she was in her 40s. However, I'm 39, and um, would have loved to have had this taken care of when I was in my early 20s. This would have made sense, to as far as also being able to recover quicker, and hopefully the fibroids would have been a lot smaller at the time, which they were. Um, because I did want laparoscopic robotic surgery, but that wasn't an option if I was going to have them removed because they were too big. And the fact that I'm petite is not really, I guess, no, I wouldn't say viable. Was not the best. It wouldn't be the best procedure for me because I was told by my doctor that they wouldn't have enough room to remove it because of my body structure. But anyways, it's every day I'm going to be doing my best to chronicle how I'm feeling. This is more so like a diary to myself of my health and wellness, after the fibroids have gone and how I feel. And each day it does get better. Like my mama said, it's gonna get better, and I believe her. I know she has had her own issues with her reproductive um journey, and I'm sure that knowing that I'm not gonna be able to conceive something that was hard for her to accept, but this is just a decision that I had to make for myself that I know is best for me. Because I don't want these fibroids to come back, and they were taking over my body. I'm pretty sure they enjoyed eating all the yummy vegan meals that I gave them, as well as some of the foods that weren't so great, but they were still vegan. But they just and the fact that one of the fibroids was leaning on my bile, so that may have caused some issues that I wasn't even aware of. But
My biggest obstacle was the stairs to my bedroom. My dad and my brother literally supported me step by step so I wouldn't injure myself. At home, I had gas pains, abdominal pain, and I had to retrain my core muscles to just sit up. I walked the hallways of my house daily to avoid blood clots. I used a heating pad, an abdominal binder. What else did I use? And Hilma's plant-based gas and bloat relief. And as a vegan, I stayed simple with food: water, vegan crackers, microwave brown rice, spinach, brown rice cakes, carrots, and apples. So I lost a lot of weight, actually. I lost 7 pounds. I still get PMS because I kept my ovaries. So I still experience very light spotting and minimal cramps. During the time I would have had my period, my OBGYN said if she would have removed my ovaries, I would have went into early menopause. And I didn't want that. No, no, no. So after the surgery, I found out from my OBGYN that I had endometriosis on my bowel. And she wasn't able to see that before because the fibroids were pushing up on all of my internal organs. I was shocked. There were moments I wondered if I made the right choice. I no longer have to bleed almost every day. I no longer have stabbing pain in my body. I no longer live in fear of hemorrhaging, the fibroids bursting, and I can finally live a pain free and period free life. And I don't have to worry about possibly bleeding through a pad throughout the day or most likely in the night when I'm sleeping. Oh, child. Don't let me get to rant about my horrific period days. Woo! Now, this isn't just a surgery story, it's a story about learning to trust yourself, even when the medical system fails you, even when you're scared, even when you feel alone. Always listen to your body. It will whisper to you long before anything shows up on an ultrasound. Do I wish I would have eliminated my fibroids the holistic and natural way? Hell yes. But I think I wanted a quicker solution, which is why I chose to get a partial hysterectomy. Now, if this helped you, or if you're considering getting a hysterectomy, or you're dealing with fibroids, or you're interested in going vegan, leave a comment below so we can support each other. I really appreciate it. Remember to take care of your body. Peace and light.